It's been a few years since the Seahawks and the Packers battled at Lumen Field, but we're going to finally get to see these teams tangle once again with significant playoff implications coming up on Sunday Night Football. Going to be breaking it all down here on a crossover Thursday edition. Locked On Seahawks, Locked On Packers.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, 12s and cheeseheads. We've got a new crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On Seahawks. I'm host Corbin Smith. Glad to be teaming up with Peter Bukowski of Locked On Packers. And Peter, it has been a long time since the Seahawks and the Packers have played. Last time they matched up 2021, and this game's got some significant playoff implications, particularly for the Seahawks being atop the NFC West. The Packers in pretty good spot to make the postseason, but the NFC North has been an absolute juggernaut this year. So we're going to be diving into this upcoming matchup on Sunday Night Football, which is brought your way by our friends over at Prize Picks. Download the app and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Peter, as I just mentioned, it has been a while since we've had an opportunity to chat about these two teams. A pretty storied rivalry for being non-divisional teams, and yet it's been a few years since we have seen these two teams battle, and a lot has changed since the last time that these teams played. No Russell Wilson, no Aaron Rodgers. You've got Geno Smith versus Jordan Love, and that's really where I want to start this conversation, because Jordan Love was dealing with some injuries early in the season, and it obviously was impacting his on-field play to an extent. But it looks to me the last 3 or 4 games here that Jordan Love is fully healthy, and now he's passing the eye test that he is playing some of his best football right now for this Packers offense.
Yeah, since the bye week, which is to say since Jordan Love has been healthy, leading the league in EPA per play as a passer. And so so much of that, and my listeners are probably sick of hearing me say that so much of the issues that I felt like he was having dealing with pressure and the blitz was his immobility, was his inability to maneuver in the pocket, to escape the pocket, and just buy himself that extra bit of time, because we've seen he can make throws off platform that just not that many quarterbacks can make. It's funny, before we jumped on here, Corbin, I was talking to some Packers media buddies about how similar these two quarterbacks are in a lot of ways. They both want to make and can make just about every throw. The wow play accuracy that they can generate goes hand in hand with some of the why did he do that energy that they both bring at times. And that makes for really dynamic passing games. And you can make, I mean, Geno Smith, if you just put together, the 10 play cut-ups of his best throws in a year, you'd go, this guy's the best quarterback in the league. Like, he can make those kinds of plays. And I think you can do the same thing with Jordan Love. And that's what makes both of these teams, frankly, so scary in a potential postseason. And for the Seahawks, their defense rounding into form. I wish I could say the same for the Packers. But their defense has really been, I think, an underrated piece of their success this year. Jordan Love has not yet fully taken the step that we thought he was going to, Corbin, but it's still out there in front of him. We saw last year the second half that he had. Are you familiar with the Toyotathon phenomenon here?
I am not.
So someone on TikTok pointed out after he kind of struggled week 1 that Jordan Love's best games have all taken place during Toyotathon, which is from November through the end of December, which coincides with the last 8 games of the season, and then is not in January. So like the Cowboys game, I guess we kind of got to throw out, but then he threw the 2 interceptions against San Francisco, did not start off the year great, gets hurt. And then everyone's like, well, everyone that saw this TikTok is like, oh, Jordan Love Toyotathon. Well, the Toyotathon is on, Corbin. So here we go, if you're a Packers fan.
And they'll have a Toyota truck at the top of Lumen Field. They always do. So maybe that's going to give some extra energy to Jordan Love in this game. You mentioned the fact that he has not quite taken that step this year, and obviously the injuries played a role in that. But look, I'm a running back purist, and I know that in today's NFL, those are kind of becoming dinosaurs. But Josh Jacobs coming in, Green Bay, they used to just sit out free agency. They never participated, and that has changed in the last 5 or 6 years. Josh Jacobs coming in, one of my favorite running backs in the NFL, with the production he put up in that Raiders offense, with the lack of pieces around him, and then you put him in this offense. It feels like Josh Jacobs has really been able to pull this offense together, even with Jordan Love's injury and maybe not taking quite as big of a step forward. Josh Jacobs has kind of been that linchpin that's really been able to keep this offense humming.
He's been everything that the Packers have wanted him to be and more. I mean, I had high expectations for what he could be. I would be lying if I thought that he could be this good. I mean, I really would be. They are fourth in DVOA running the ball right now offensively. And he just keeps them on track every time and has been more of a dynamic runner than Packer fans expected him to be. Now, I don't have to tell Seahawks fans about how dynamic Josh Jacobs is. The last time Josh Jacobs was at Lumen Field, I mean, I think he just scored another touchdown. I mean, he absolutely torched the Seahawks a couple years ago. And in fact, on the last play of that game, he hit like a 60-yard touchdown to call up the band. So it was one of those funny things that the last time these two teams haven't played together, but Josh Jacobs has actually played the Seahawks more recently than the Packers. And it was in the year that he was the NFL's leading rusher. So he is going to be key in this game, Corbin, absolutely, because this is, I understand, an improved defense of late the last month, but over the course of the season, they're 25th in yards per carry allowed, bottom half in some of the efficiency metrics as well. And the Packers have been trying to play more big personnel lately. They wanted to run on Detroit, who have an elite run defense. Part of that was some of the injuries that they're dealing with, but I think this is one of those games where the Packers are going to get in two tight end sets. Luke Musgrave back in practice yesterday, and say, put all those backup linebackers or new face linebackers on the field and see if you can stop this group. I think that's going to be a big piece of what we expect to see on Sunday night.
You mentioned this earlier in the segment that the carry the load, but the defense has not quite been to the level that maybe expectations were at before the season. I know there's certainly been some injuries. Jair Alexander coming back this week. That was the one that I had bookmarked, like, is he going to play? Because that is a huge return for that secondary. But, I mean, this is a top 10 defense and scoring defense.
Yeah.
And yet there's been several times I've watched this team this year where it hasn't felt like I'm watching a top 10 defense.
Yeah, and isn't that funny? Because if you adjust it for schedule, they're also top 10 and 10th in passing, 10th in rushing. And you're right. It does not always pass the eye test. And part of that is because they have allowed 174 completions over the middle of the field. That's 30th in the NFL. 10 touchdowns in the middle of the field. You can get the ball in the middle of the field against this defense, but it's hard to run on them. So it's hard to stay in favorable down and distances. And it's very hard to create big plays. This is a top 5 defense, not allowing explosive passes. So they have been really good saying, if you're going to score on this Packers defense, you're going to drive the length of the field. You are going to go 10, 12, 15 plays, 70 yards, and go from there. And, that not every team can be that efficient. And I think for the Packers, one of the things that they're going to have to do, and one of the things they've relied on a lot this year, is create turnovers. Geno Smith has been an up and down quarterback against pressure this year. Volatility is part of the position in that regard. But some of the numbers say that, I think he's thrown the most interceptions in the league against the blitz this year. And part of that is this offensive line has not been up to snuff. The Packers have liked to not blitz this year. They want to throw a lot of simulated pressures at you, which the Seahawks should be used to. That's the Mike McDonald defense as well. Let's try and get crazy. Let's disguise. So it shouldn't be anything that new. I wonder if the Packers are going to dial up some more pressure in a game like this, knowing what Geno Smith has dealt with this year. And to your point, it's not just the return of Jair Alexander, which I think will allow them to play a little bit more man coverage and a little bit more just sort of static cover 3 zone out of what is not going to be a static front look. Edgerrin Cooper's return is huge for this defense. They have been we're going to let you dump the ball off. We're going to rally and tackle consistently. Well, Isaiah McDuffie is just not the athlete Edgerrin Cooper is, rookie out of Texas A&M. He is a dynamic weapon. He has been one of the best pass rushing off-ball linebackers in the league this year. He's been dealing with a soft tissue injury. He was back at practice. And so if he can come back in this game, I think you're going to see a lot of 5-man pressures with Edgerrin Cooper as the add-on. And he's got that kind of pass rush ability that can really make life miserable for opposing offenses.
The Packers are getting healthier. The Seahawks feel like they're the healthiest they have been all season for the most part. So that's pretty exciting. We're going to look at Seattle and some of their injury situations and much more. That'll be coming up next here on our Week 15 crossover Thursday edition here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Get ready for the closing stretch of the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and much more on the same page where you place your bets. You can bet on everything right now, from Geno Smith and Jordan Love scoring a combined 6 or more touchdowns on Sunday night, or Josh Jacobs being the first skill player to find the end zone at Lumen Field. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. This crossover Thursday is also brought your way by Game Time. You shouldn't have to think about skipping a car payment when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, and comedy near you. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and with their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You want to see the Seahawks and the Packers battle on Sunday Night Football? You can get seats at one of the loudest venues in the NFL in the lower bowl for under $200 right now. Great seats without breaking the budget. See some exciting young talent as we get towards the end of the regular season and approach the playoffs. Game Time has deals on tickets right at the day of the event, and the Game Time guarantee means always get the best price to write your own memories. If you find tickets in the same section row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time by downloading the Game Time app, creating an account, and using the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account or redeem the code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. You're listening to Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We've got Locked On Seahawks, Locked On Packers. I'm host Corbin Smith. Glad to be teaming up with Peter Bukowski of Locked On Packers. And it's been some time. We've mentioned this already, but it has been 3+ seasons since the last time these two teams played. Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers were still slinging the pigskin in Seahawks and Packers uniforms. Kind of is dating me thinking about this a little bit, how long it has been since these two teams have played. But as you were discussing with Jordan Love, the Seahawks look much different than what they did in that last matchup. Now, just like Jordan Love, Geno Smith was on Seattle's roster the last time that these two teams played. In fact, he had started the previous 3 games.
Oh, that's right.
But he has not started against the Green Bay Packers since his second year in the league, when he was still with the Rex Ryan-led New York Jets, 2014. It has been a long time.
And they blew that game. They had a big lead in that game, and Rodgers stormed them back.
Yep, and there was a key interception that was thrown by Geno Smith late in that game that allowed the Packers to be able to do that. But that's how long it has been since Geno Smith has played against this team.
10 years.
And yet there's going to be a little bit of familiarity, because some of the players on the defense, including Xavier McKinney, who Geno Smith has played against several times and actually has had some success targeting him in the past, but that was when he was on the Giants, and we know when players leave the Giants, they become much better players when they go elsewhere. And McKinney's just an example of that.
Yeah, this is the when you're thinking about Packers Seahawks matchups, you're thinking about Mike McCarthy, you're thinking about Pete Carroll, you're thinking about Russell Wilson, the Fail Mary, all that stuff, right? Like this is a kind of storied rivalry of the 2000s, and yet none of the people that were involved in it are here now. And so, could there be a new one? We'll see. I wanted to ask you about that, because the defense, the Legion of Boom, was in full effect when this rivalry started in earnest with Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. The last 4 weeks, they have looked like a different group. The trade for Ernest Jones being a part of that, and then some of the moves at linebacker. I can't remember a team just saying, hey, the 2 guys that used to be starting at linebacker are not even on our team in a matter of a month. Like, pretty remarkable stuff. And then to bring in a guy who just steps right in and is immediately productive for you in terms of coming into the starting lineup, Tyrese Knight, and that. What has really been the driving factor of this defensive turnaround, or has it been that these other teams are just not that good?
See, and I would push back on anybody that says that, because Kyler Murray was playing lights out before the Seahawks played them the first of 2 games in 3 weeks. I mean, he had 13 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. The Cardinals had won 4 straight. Aaron Rodgers has not had a good year by any means, but he's still got Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, the outside. Yep. So they've been playing decent competition from the quarterback position during this win streak. But the linebackers are really the ones that have changed this, because Mike McDonald coming over from Baltimore, that was his position. Right. Pete Carroll was a secondary guy. Mike McDonald came over as the linebacker whisperer. And it's, and he's tried to downplay this a little bit, but it's very similar to when Roquan Smith came to Baltimore in the middle of his first season as a defensive coordinator. They go out and they get Ernest Jones, and he has had that kind of an impact on this defense. And Tyrese Knight, I mentioned this yesterday on our show, he is a brick on skates. Like, when he gets to you, he's knocking you down. Like, there's no question about it. The guy does not miss tackles. He hits like an anvil. I mean, he's just really fun to watch. These two guys have been game changers, and you got to give Mike McDonald credit, because the linebackers they signed in free agency, and John Schneider too, for being willing to say, you know what, I'm not going to keep diving into sunk costs here. These two have just not played the way we thought they were going to. We're going to reinvent this linebacker spot. And if anybody knows how to do that, Mike McDonald has shown now 2 times in 3 years that he can make these rapid changes at the position. And I think that you have felt the contagious effect on the other 2 levels of the defense with the way that those guys are playing. And it's once again showing, I'm not going to go down the running backs don't matter thing, but linebackers matter a hell of a lot more than I think a lot of people realize that they do. It is an incredibly important position, even in today's NFL. And what the Seahawks have done has proven that these last 4 weeks.
I think they're very similar in that if you are a bad team, a good player at those positions does not really matter. But if you are a good team or a mediocre team, a bad player at those positions can sink you. Yep. And a good player can be the difference between you being just okay and good. And I think we're seeing that. Frankly, we're seeing that in Philadelphia, where Saquon Barkley has been a force multiplier. We're seeing that in Green Bay, where Josh Jacobs has been a force multiplier. And the Packers have been dealing with this linebacker thing for years. They have not been able to find an impact player on defense at that spot. And although they've had some good pieces around, that has been a black hole for them. Part of the linebacker position is defending play action. This has been one of the worst teams defending play action on the season. Better lately. They've allowed the most touchdowns off play action this year, 4th in EPA per play defending play action. Only the Jaguars have allowed more total yards off play action. Is that just fixed now? Because to my eyes, I still see a group of linebackers that are keying hard downfield, and that can create some susceptibility. This Packers offense, the number 1 offense in play action EPA per play this year.
Yeah, so you're talking from Seattle's play action perspective?
Well, when the Packers are on offense, play actioning with those linebackers and what those guys are doing. Like, do you think the fact that you have 2 new guys there, is that just fixed, or is this something that you think Green Bay can still attack?
I think that they probably can still attack it, but it's definitely much improved with those 2 guys in there, because I think one of the biggest problems Seattle was having, Tyrel Dodson was just atrocious against play action. He was really the main culprit behind that. And Jerome Baker was just not healthy for most of the time that he was here. And even when he was in the lineup, he's an athletic guy, but there were too many times he was getting sucked up and they were struggling so much defending the run that I think both these guys were selling out, trying to help with that issue. And it was just creating those seams behind in the intermediate level. But all you have to do is watch
the Packers a little bit too, by the way, that they're really coming down and filling aggressively. And then all of a sudden they got to haul ass to get back to their hook zone. And they don't have the athleticism outside of Quay Walker to be able to do that when Edgerrin Cooper is not on the field.
Yeah. And Seattle, from an offensive perspective, that's been one of my biggest nitpicks with Ryan Grubb all season, is that he has not wanted to run play action. They haven't been good running the football, which has made it tougher, but they're coming off 2 of their best games running the ball. It seems like
Zach Charbonnet, look at that guy go.
They're starting to get an identity going there. And so from a schematic perspective, you're hoping that means more play action, because Geno Smith was the number 1 play action passer in the NFL last year. I mean, he has been lethal on play action passes, and they had the fewest number going into 2 weeks ago in the league. So that was just bewildering, but some of it was circumstantial with not being able to run the ball. But yeah, from Seattle's defensive perspective, I think that Tyrese Knight with his athleticism, Ernest Jones had an interception on a play action pass by Kyler Murray the other day that was just ridiculous. And you can now, if you watch the All-22, you can see why Kyler Murray threw it, because Ernest Jones was perpendicular to the other sideline. He was facing toward, I mean, it looked like, oh, there's no way he's going to make a play on this. He pivots immediately and intercepts it.
Wow.
These two guys have really changed things just for this entire defense, the passing game, the play action, and the run game. And again, I think you've seen a ripple effect with everybody else. And when you push buttons correctly like that, like Mike McDonald has done, it's pretty easy to get buy-in from the rest of the team.
Yeah, I want to hit on this offense before we get into some keys to victory, the predictions, and all that good stuff. I look at the talent at the skill positions. Like if you're just building a fantasy team, man, the Seahawks, this is with the receivers that they have, the three guys at the receiver position. You got a pair of running backs with Zach Charbonnet, taking a step forward here lately. We know what Kenneth Walker can do. And I think Geno Smith has been the last 2 years an underrated quarterback. And yet they sit 16th in DVOA. Is this all just like, hey, the blocking is not what it needs to be? Or is there something else structural you see here going on?
I think that they've been a little bit too easy to predict in terms of offensive tells. I think there's been some adjustments that Ryan Grubb has had to make, particularly in the run game and not having enough play action, not enough under center. And I'm seeing him starting to make those adjustments. But the offensive line has been the biggest issue all year long. Now, that has changed these last few weeks. Satoa Lamea, their rookie out of Utah, has come in, and he's just been knocking heads. That dude, he's bringing the physicality they have been badly missing. And Abraham Lucas, I wondered at the beginning of the year if we were ever going to see a fully healthy Abraham Lucas again. We are seeing it right now. He's moving really well. He's pancaking dudes. That's really starting to change things. And Oluwatimi at center, I mean, Connor Williams abruptly retiring, that could have derailed everything. Oluwatimi's come in and played better than what Connor Williams was before he did that. So the line is playing better. They're still not great or even good at this point, but they have been playing better as of late. I think that has been the biggest thing that's been holding this offense back to this point.
All right, I'm ready. Let's do it. Let's talk about who we think is going to win, why, all that good stuff.
Yeah. We're going to get to the keys to victory. Have our predictions against the spread. That'll be coming up next year on Crossover Thursday. This episode is brought your way by Built. Real talk. We've all been there feeling like we're burning cash with those rent checks. It's frustrating, but here's the deal. Built Rewards has figured out a way to make rent more rewarding. Say goodbye to the money bonfire and hello to a renter's revolution with Built. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent every single month. Pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in, and you can use these points to jet off on a dream vacation. You can put them towards a flight or a hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. You can even use your points to book fitness studio classes or redeem them towards a future rent payment. They're designed to meet whatever your lifestyle is. Pay rent hassle-free with the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade with Built Points, which has consistently been ranked the highest value point currency by the Point Guys and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/LockedInNFL. That's JOINBILT.com/LockedInNFL. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Join built.com/LockedInNFL to start earning points with your rent payments today. All right, it's time for some keys to victory and some predictions against the spread here on Crossover Thursday. We got a big primetime Sunday night matchup, Seahawks and Packers at Lumen Field. I'm Corbin Smith, glad to be teaming up with Peter Bukowski. Peter, let's get to the keys to victory for the Green Bay Packers. This has been such a weird series over the years where the home team has just been utterly dominant. I can't remember the last time the Packers won at Lumen Field, and I can't remember the last time the Seahawks won at Lambeau Field. And this game being in Seattle, obviously a lot of different characters, almost all different characters now. But what do the Packers need to do to make this long trip out west and get the win on the road?
Is the last time the Packers have won in Seattle Aaron Rodgers' first season as a starter? Could it be that long ago?
I think so, yeah. I think it was 2000. It was pre-Pete Carroll.
So yeah, it's been 16 years basically since this has happened. I don't believe in like we were just talking to Chris Carter on our NFL Squad show that the Steelers have not won in Philadelphia since 1965, which is crazy. So at least it's not that long a streak. I appreciate that. But this is going to be a fun game. I think both of these offenses are going to find ways to create opportunities for themselves. I think Geno Smith is going to be able to attack this Packers defense in the middle of the field. I can't wait to see how they deploy Jair Alexander. Would you follow DK Metcalf with him? Is Keyshawn Nixon going to play in the slot with Javon Bullard likely out? How are they going to align some of these guys. Is Evan Williams going to be back? Romeo Doubs looks like he's back practicing. I think that's really a good sign for this Packers offense. This offense has faced the toughest defensive schedule in the league this year, according to FTN Fantasy. They're not afraid of anybody. And in their 4 losses, they have put up 400 yards in 3 of them, and over 30 points in the one that they didn't. So the offense has not really been the problem. It has been penalties in the red zone. They lead the league in red zone penalties. So my key to victory in this one is red zone penalties. It's as simple as that, because I think they're going to have opportunities to score. I think they're going to be able to move the ball. They've moved the ball on everybody they've faced. Can you score in the red zone? The answer when they have a penalty is no. And if they don't, the answer is yes. It really has been that simple for Green Bay this year. If they go 4 for 5 in the red zone, they're going to win. And so to me, it seems obvious to say, well, score, right? But for the Packers, that's been a tough thing, even for a really good offense. And so that's where I think this goes. Can I guess yours?
Yes, you can go for it here.
Protect Geno Smith.
You see, this could be a broken record every single week. But for me, protecting Geno Smith is more about running the football. Okay. And as you mentioned, Green Bay's been pretty darn good against the run game this year.
Yeah.
But it feels like, again, that this identity is starting to form a little bit for the Seahawks. And they don't need to run for 170 yards again like they did this last game against Arizona. But Arizona had the number 1 rushing defense in the last 5 weeks going into that game. And they were able to get their gap schemes going. They were able to physically maul the Cardinals up front. They were able to get out in space and create some plays with Zach Charbonnet. Who knows if Ken Walker III is available, but that is going to be the key for me, because I think Geno Smith can get the ball downfield against this Packers defense, and I think he can attack the middle of the field with Jackson Smith-Njigba, who is turning into a top 10 receiver right in front of our eyes. He's as good at carving people up over the middle as any receiver in the NFL right now.
Yeah,
but if you want to
take drafted him. Don't remind me.
They want to be able to take advantage of that, though. They're going to have some semblance of a run game to take some of that pressure off of Geno Smith. And it's going to help the offensive line, because this group they've got right now, they seem to want to get after it more in the run game than what some of the other groups they had. They were rotating in and out of the lineup. To me, that is going to be key. And on defense, look, Seahawks have been great the last 5 games, 4 games in particular, under 14 points per game. Part of the reason is the chaos. And Mike McDonald, those growing pains seem to be past, and they are making life difficult on some pretty good quarterbacks and making them make mistakes with the football. And they've been doing it, picking off passes, returning them for 6. I don't think they need a pick 6 in this game, but they've got to find a way. Jordan Love has been willing to throw into double coverage this year several times.
Sure has.
In Seattle, get the pressure or mix in the sim pressures that are going to create some looks where Jordan Love ends up misreading the coverage and then makes a bad mistake. Seattle has been making every quarterback pay doing that in the last month. Can you keep that rolling? That seems like a prescription to get a victory over the Green Bay Packers if they're able to do that again at home.
I think that chaos point is perfect in my last key here, because this is going to be a game, and I said this on our squad show, for all the spread modern concepts in the NFL, you still win or lose games at the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
On both sides. And this Packers run game, I think, has an advantage against the Seahawks. And Matt LaFleur has proven if he thinks he can run it on you, he's going to run it 40 times on you. And they're going to get in heavy personnel. And they did this against Detroit. They got in 2 tight ends. For the last 3 quarters, Corbin, they played 44% 12 personnel with 2 tight ends on the field. 44%. Like, that would be number 1 by a mile in the NFL if it were a season-long number. And they're getting Luke Musgrave back. At least he's back practicing. I think this is one of those games where you see a ton of under center runs, a ton of under center play action, and the Packers do the same thing they tried to do to Detroit. Let Jordan Love throw it 20, 25 times. See if you can stay on schedule, make a couple plays on 3rd down. And I think that's the way you get this going. On the other side, though, I am worried about Green Bay's middle of the field defense, because I don't think Seattle's going to want to run the ball. Like, if you go 70-30 pass rate versus run rate, I think Grubb is happy. Like, I think Geno Smith is happy. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba and DK Metcalf are happy. And that's kind of who they've been this year. That concerns me, which leads me to think this is going to be a shootout. I think this is like a 30-24 kind of game. I think 2.5 is not enough. It opened at 3.5. I think it should be 3.5 or 4. Jair Alexander coming back, Romeo Dobbs coming back. I think that could even push it to 5 for me in the way that I look at it. So I have it like 30-24 Packers in a game that I think is going to could potentially feel closer than that. And so that's where I am. I think they get their first win at Lumen, first win in Seattle in a decade and a half.
2.5 seems, I don't know. I just feel like Seattle's playing really good football right now. And I know Green Bay is too, but the issue has been Seattle's been so bad at home most of this year, which has just been uncharacteristic. But
that is weird.
They did beat Arizona the last time they were at home, and that looked more like a typical Lumen Field game with the crowd noise and the other team having issues with penalties, the false starts galore. So can the crowd bring it again? I think the crowd's going to be a big part of this. And Sunday Night Football, this is going to be a real nice litmus test for Mike Macdonald because Pete Carroll's teams were dominant on Sunday Night Football during his time. Is Mike Macdonald going to carry that over for this game? I think this is a game that is going to be extremely close, and whoever has the ball last wins type game. And I'll have my score prediction on our Friday show, but I think that this is one you could flip a coin on because both these teams are playing good football. Even in a loss last week, I thought Green Bay played winning football for most of that game. So I think that this is a game. I think it's a playoff matchup. I think we could see these teams playing again in a few weeks.
Yeah, if the playoffs were today, we would. This would be the 3-6.
Yeah, this would be the game we'd be seeing. So we could see these teams at Lumen Field again. And so I think it's going to be a back and forth, tooth and nail type game. I think there's going to be more offense than we've seen from Seattle in recent games. And I think you're going to have to because Green Bay is going to find some success moving the ball as well. I think it's going to be one of the games to watch, though, of this 2024 season. We shall see. Anyway, make sure that you are listening in, Locked On Seahawks and Locked On Packers on our Friday episodes. I'm Corbin Smith. Follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Peter at Peter_Bukowski on X. We'll have our episodes of Locked On Seahawks and Locked On Packers coming your way tomorrow as we draw closer to this primetime matchup at Lumen Field. Thanks for listening in. Go Hawks. Go Cheeseheads.